Hi, it's Naomi. It's Friday, October 31st. I'll be going over the digestion and absorption of the carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. So, we have carbohydrates, or otherwise known as starches, and these starches are, going to be pasta, noodles, rice. They're going to begin digestion in the mouth and go through the salivary amylase, and our saliva is going to break down that starch into oligosaccharides or disaccharides like maltose, sucrose, and lactose. And then those will go through the esophagus and through the stomach because there's no chemical digestion that happens here, which just means that there's no enzymes in these regions to break it down further. But once it reaches the small intestine or the lumen, it's going to break that oligosaccharide down further into a disaccharide, the maltose, because of pancreatic amylase. And once it does that, it's going to break it down further on the microvilli of the small intestine, or in the epithelium, because of the enzymes maltase, sucrose, and lactase. So it's going to break down those disaccharides into monosaccharides, such as glucose, fructose, and galactose. And then those will be then absorbed into the blood vessels or the blood capillaries. And that just means that the blood supply is just taking in those nutrients. And with proteins, or these long amino acid chains that you get from eating meat or eggs, those are going to begin digestion in the stomach, and it's going to break up that long amino acid chain into smaller amino acid chains or small peptides because of the pepsin that is in the stomach to break it down. And then in the small intestine, the lumen of the small intestine, it's going to break up those smaller chains into dipeptides, or just pairs of amino acids, because of the trypsin, the chymotrypsin, and the carboxypeptidase. So that's going to break it down, those smaller chains, into the just pairs. And then once it reaches that brush contact on the microvilli of the small intestine, it's going to be broken down further because of the dipeptidase and aminopeptidase enzymes, and it'll break down into just free amino acids. And then those free amino acids are going to be absorbed into the blood vessel or the blood capillary to be taken in. And with lipids or fats, so anything from cheese or something, that'll be the head and tail chemical component. The fat or lipid will begin digestion in the stomach, and because of the gastric or lingual lipase, and that'll be broken down further in the lumen of the small intestine because of pancreatic lipase and bile. And that'll break up that'll separate the head and tail into monoglycerides and free fatty acids. And then that'll be further broken down into micelles. And then once it reaches the microvilli of the small intestine, the epithelium, it's going to take those monoglycerides and fatty acids and break it down further into triglycerides and kilomicrons, and it'll just make those heads smaller. And then those triglycerides will be absorbed into lacteal instead of the blood capillary, which means lacteal, just the small lymphatic vessel, and this is what's going to absorb the lipids and any other fat soluble vitamin. And it's because those fats are too large for the blood vessels directly to consume or absorb. So it'll go through the lymphatic system first, and then eventually end up in the bloodstream or the blood capillaries. So there you have it.